Here's a long and detailed fictional story about a sniper titled Through the Crosshairs. Let me know if you'd like me to modify any part of it or create a different narrative. Through the crosshairs in the stillness of dawn, the world seemed frozen. Somewhere in the war-torn hills of Eastern Europe, Captain Elias Hart lay prone on a cold, damp ridge. His ghillie suit, camouflaged with bits of earth and foliage, made him blend seamlessly into the rugged terrain. Through the scope of his M40A6 sniper rifle, he scanned the distant horizon, a world of ruins, rubble, and enemy activity. Elias wasn't new to this life. For over a decade, he had been the silent predator in the shadows, the invisible hand of justice that could end lives from over a mile away. But with every trigger pull, he felt the weight of his actions growing heavier, like an unseen sniper aiming back at his soul. The mission Elias's current mission was critical. Intelligence suggested that a high-ranking enemy commander, Anton Mirnov, would be making a brief stop in the village below. Mirnov was a mastermind of guerrilla tactics, responsible for countless civilian casualties. His death could cripple the enemy's operations in the region. Elias had one chance, one shot, to change the course of the war. Beside him lay his spotter, Corporal Jay Rivers. Jay was younger, with a sharp eye and a sharper wit, often joking to mask the tension. "How long do we have to stare at nothing, Captain?" he whispered, his voice barely audible over the faint rustle of leaves. "As long as it takes," Elias replied, his tone calm and deliberate. Patience was a sniper's greatest ally, and Elias had mastered it over years of grueling training and real-world missions. The wait hours passed, the sun climbed higher, casting long shadows across the landscape. The village below seemed deserted, its crumbling buildings standing like tombstones. But through the binoculars, Jay spotted movement. "Got something," Jay murmured, adjusting the focus. "Black SUV heading into the square. Could be him." Elias shifted his rifle slightly, his scope trained on the vehicle. The tinted windows made it impossible to see inside. He adjusted the windage and elevation knobs on his scope, calculating the distance, 1,200 meters. The shot was within his capabilities, but barely. As the SUV came to a stop, armed guards spilled out, scanning the surroundings. A tall man in a dark coat emerged, his face partially obscured by a scarf. Elias's finger hovered over the trigger. "That's him," Jay confirmed, his voice tight with urgency. "Anton Mirnov." Elias exhaled slowly, his heart rate steady. Time seemed to slow as he aligned the crosshairs with Mirnov's chest. But then, something unexpected happened. A child ran into the square. The dilemma. The little boy couldn't have been more than 6 years old. He carried a bundle of firewood, his steps hesitant and unsure. Mirnov paused, glancing at the child before motioning to one of his guards. The guard handed the boy a small bag, likely food or money. Elias hesitated. The shot was clear, but the presence of the child complicated everything. If the boy moved into the line of fire, there would be collateral damage. Elias couldn't risk it. "Do we abort?" Jay asked, his voice barely concealing his nerves. Elias didn't answer immediately. He was weighing the odds, calculating the risks. He knew they couldn't wait much longer. Mirnov would leave, and the opportunity would be lost. The shot Elias made his decision. "Hold steady," he whispered. He waited until the child stepped out of the danger zone. The moment Mirnov turned to speak to one of his guards, Elias pulled the trigger. The sound of the shot echoed through the valley, sharp and final. Through the scope, Elias saw the impact, a clean hit to the chest. Mirnov staggered, then collapsed. Chaos erupted in the square as the guards scrambled, shouting and searching for the shooter. "Target down," Jay confirmed, but there was no celebration in his voice. Both men knew the mission was far from over. The escapee Elias and Jay packed their gear swiftly, moving like shadows through the underbrush. They had to reach the extraction point 2 miles away before the enemy located their position. The terrain was unforgiving, a mix of rocky paths and dense forest. The sound of distant gunfire followed them, growing louder as enemy patrols spread out in search of the sniper. Elias led the way, his movements deliberate and calculated. Jay followed, his nerves fraying with every passing second. They reached a narrow ravine, a natural choke point. As they climbed down, an enemy drone buzzed overhead, its camera scanning the ground below. "Get down," Elias hissed, pulling Jay into the shadows of an overhanging rock. They held their breath as the drone passed, its ominous hum fading into the distance, but their reprieve was short-lived. Moments later, they heard the unmistakable sound of boots crunching on gravel. A patrol was closing in, the final stand Elias signaled to